Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the promised kind of little midterm quick glance or midterm review. So do take some time to watch this video. I'm going to run through a few questions which will be very similar to ones that you'll find on your midterm. Remember, the midterm will be 75 questions, multiple choice format. And I know that you haven't seen any quiz questions yet because we have the topic essays versus weekly quizzes. So let's take a look, and I'll show you kind of how these questions are written, and that may help you in studying for the midterm. And remember, we have 2 midterms and a final in this course. All right, so let's take a look here. I will get my picture totally off with this. And all right, so I'm covering up the answers as we kind of go along. So if you're wondering why I have this little page covering here, but let's look at the question, kind of picked at random questions similar to that you will find on the midterm. So, sources of healthcare revenue in the United States. And here we have basically 4 choices, or E, none of the above. So you have a variety of public programs, source of revenue. You have private payers, certain governmental sources. So if you think about it, or D, none of, or D, all of the above, or E, none of the above, I think as you apply your own question answering strategy, you could see that all of these would apply. So again, look for those. If you go through and you go, well, that's a correct answer, and that's a correct answer, there's usually going to be a box on there that will be all of the above or none of the above. And I will supply, when you have completed your midterm, there is a feedback section on there that shows where I got the question from. So hopefully it's still on page 33 of your text. All right, let's take a look at another question. A little bit of math, but relax. Don't worry. Take a breath. This should be easy to do. All right, so this is a depreciation question. So if you have a piece of equipment, it costs $110,000, has a 10-year useful life with a $10,000 salvage value. Again, how much it's at the end of life, what's it worth, scrap or whatever. It's worth $10,000 at the end. The annual depreciation expense using straight line depreciation, which is the super easy one. So what is the annual expense that you're going to be able to depreciate that equipment? Remember, depreciation is an expense because we're actually using that equipment up over the years until it's basically worth nothing or worth the salvage value. All right, so you simply take the $110,000, you'll minus the $10,000, the salvage value. That'll give you the number that you have to deal with. And you have $100,000, works out nice round number, 100,000, and you got 10 years. Picked a nice number there for you too. So 100,000 divided by 10. And then you go, well, that's $10,000. And let's see if you're correct. It's one of our answers, so it looks good. And ta-da, yes, it's $10,000 a year you're going to be as an annual depreciation expense for whatever that $110,000 piece of equipment is. All right, so let's move on. Again, hopefully the math won't be too difficult on this. If anything, pencil and paper math. I don't think you'll need a calculator, but hopefully or even do it in your head. All right, next question, liabilities. Okay, so liabilities are economic obligations. Yeah, okay. That's true. As I'm going through here, then liabilities, what the organization owns. Now, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Those are assets, so I'm going to skip that one. C, debts that are payable. True. And D, what the organization owes. So with this one, it's one of those multiple ones. So make sure you look at all the different A, B's, and C's I have in there when you look at the kind of the end. So as we were going through here, it was A, C, and D. Look for one of those, and sure enough, I've got it in there at G. Answer G, A, C, and D. Let's see if I got this correct. And I do. Yay. Okay, so A, C, and G. All right, so know that you're going to have those multiple ones in there, and you'll have to kind of separate the good from the bad. And again, you can find that on, as we scroll up here on page 25. Oh, I did have a none of the above. Okay, so page 25 for the answer on that. All right, so non-productive work time may include, again, this is another one where you may want to check off or double check as you're going through. I might have multiple correct answers. Now, if you scan down, you know that I'm not doing that same strategy as before where you have, A, C, and D, where multiples are in there. So I guess you can scan down and go right away and go, look, there's not going to be a multiple correct answer. There's going to be either a kind of an all or none situation. So as you're going through there, non-productive time may include either sick days, holidays, personal leave days, all of the above, or none of the above. Well, if you look at all of that as far as non-productive time, sick, holidays, personal leave days, all of those are non-productive time. Found on page 102. All right, so revenues. Again, some of the fundamentals here. What are revenues? Are they actual cash inflows, expected cash inflows, actual cash outflows, or expected cash outflows? So you're going to have to do your strategy. You're going to see there's probably some multiples in there. And it would look like that you would have the, at least A and B would be in there. And is that correct? And it is. So hopefully they kind of separate themselves out a little bit. Revenues, that, again, hopefully anything outflow generally doesn't make any sense, right? So you would immediately eliminate those answers. So with that one, the correct answer is A and B. All right, so good there. Okay. Let's move on to our next sample question, and the accounting primarily intended for the outside or third-party use. Again, those people looking at your organization from the outside. And is it known as financial accounting? Managerial accounting. Don't know about that one. C, emphasizes external reporting. That sounds good. And requires the use of GAAP, or generally accepted accounting principles. So with this one, you hopefully are focusing in pretty quickly on financial accounting. That's the accounting method used for those external entities that are looking at your organization. Managerial is your internal stuff. So I think you can see that three of those answers align pretty quickly with financial accounting. Of course, it's A, C, and D. And sure enough, there is an answer that aligns to A, C, and D, and it is the correct answer in this case. All right, our next question is, and we'll scroll up here. Full-time equivalent is a measure used to express the equivalent of an employee annualized or a position staffed for full-time required. Basically, this is a glorified true or false question. And you may hear the words also FTE. I know here at Mercy Health we use FTE, full-time equivalent, and hopefully you see that one as being correct. The answer that is the definition of a full-time equivalent, or a FTE. Okay, so let's move on. Sorry, missed my scroll here. The Medicaid program, okay, is funded exclusively by federal funds. Provisions are state-specific within broad federal national guidelines, or both of the above. Well, if you know a little bit about Medicaid, it is that provisions are kind of state-oriented with those guidelines. So each Medicaid has a state orientation. So the key with that one, the zinger, is funded exclusively by federal funds. So though the feds have a huge part in Medicaid, not Medicare. So think about, Medicare is all feds. Medicaid is the states. So, and that one, the correct answer is provisions are state-specific within broad federal and national guidelines. And that can be found on page 34. Moving on here. So hopefully you're seeing these aren't too terribly difficult. In the case of healthcare, revenue is typically earned by, and our choices, sorry, this is actually extending on a couple of pages here, so we're probably going to see the answer so as I scroll up. But how do you earn revenue? Rendered services to the community, not so much. Rendered services to patients, hey, that sounds good. And then some of our other, of course, that's the correct answer. Some of the answers I threw in there to kind of throw you off would be professionals such as physician. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And organizations such as hospitals. So that doesn't make any sense. So basically, when you look at how does healthcare make money? And they make money by rendering services to patients. So that's a no-brainer. All right. Now, we're going to be talking on the next question is the within the cost report. So when we talk about these various reports, and whoops, sorry, you can see the answer here, but within the cost report, the primary purpose of a cost center is to what? Well, they generate these cost centers so we can correctly allocate the overhead to that particular entity, which is really important. And you can see there, obviously, the answer is A. Divide direct salaries into groups. That doesn't make sense. Provide a distinction between inpatient and outpatient costs. That doesn't make any sense. Though you could have a cost center that strictly deals with outpatients, but you could have a cost center that deals with both. So that's kind of not true in all cases. The most correct answer is to really allocate costs to the correct activities associated with that particular function, I guess. So, and you can find more on cost centers on page 49. A few more here. An organization's economic resources include, okay, so resources, these are the good things, the positive things. Accounts receivable. Okay, so accounts receivable, that's mean people owe me money. That's a good thing, right? Notes receivable. That means, again, you are receiving money. A note is a word basically for a loan. So loans receivable. I've given someone a loan and they're paying me back usually with terms, and terms is a fancy word for interest. So notes receivable. So that sounds like a resource. And then notes payable. Loans payable. Is that an economic resource if I have to pay somebody? No, because I'm usually paying and I usually have an interest expense associated with that. So for this one, I would say A and B look like my target. Those are two correct answers, and sure enough, I've got a couple of things to throw you off in here a little bit, but A and B is listed as D, and that is the correct answer. All right, we'll just do a couple of more here. The little bit longer one here, but when healthcare finance is considered a method of getting money in and out of a business, the successful manager is able to achieve the most beneficial outcome by adjusting the inflow and outflow through what actions? So what are you going to be able to do to manage all of this stuff? The inflow and outflow of money, basically. Well, organizing, true. I think that's controlling, yes. Good decision making, absolutely. Planning, yeah, critical. So those are kind of all the essential fundamentals for financial management. So I want to make sure, do I have an answer that matches those four? And I do. You have to go all the way down. So you might see a few where you have, 7, 8 choices, but look for the most correct. In this case, I think H sounds pretty good, fits the bill, and yes, sure enough, that is the correct answer. We can find that on page 4. And our last one, our last review question, let me just scoot this down a bit. The basic types of healthcare organizations may be described as profit-oriented, okay, non-profit-oriented, sure, yeah, we have those too, right? We have for-profit hospitals and non-for-profit hospitals, hospital systems. That's true. Foundations that comply with all legal requirements. What is that? That kind of doesn't make any sense. But A and B definitely do make sense, and they fit an answer, answer D, and we may do the reveal here, and answer D is the correct answer. All right, so there is your quick little review. I think we went over about 13 questions in there. You got a flavor of the questions, hopefully not too difficult. The only tricky part is the multiple correct answers. Make sure you find every multiple correct answer, and then, of course, look for the corresponding multiple choice answer that might say D, B, and F or something like that to make sure that you've got that. That's where usually students they make the mistake is that they're in a hurry. They'll read the question, they'll see, oh, there's a correct answer, boom, A, and they'll stop there, click next, go to the next question. Read the whole question, read all the answers, and you should do just fine. I've put plenty of time on this exam, so hopefully you'll do really well. Now, the time may get crunched down a little bit when we go into midterm 2 and to the final, but with this one, to get you acclimated to the whole thing, I think the time is pretty generous. I believe we're at 180 minutes, so hopefully that's enough time for you. All right, that concludes our quick little midterm sneak a peek. And I hope everybody does great on the midterm. I have a confidence that you will all do very, very well. Thanks.